Hey, good afternoon, everyone. This is Ramam. I'm joined in from Hyderabad. I guess you're able to see the presentation. That is due to some technical problems, so I got delayed here, so I apologize for that. Hey, Keshav, if you will go on to the second slide. Done, Keshav?
Yes, we are on the second slide.
All right. So just because I would like to thank my company, Cognizant, for giving me this, for allowing me to speak at this public forum. Just to tell very, very briefly, so we are a leading provider of IT consulting and BPO services, and we are headquartered in Teaneck, New Jersey, and we combine a passion for client satisfaction, technology, innovation, industry expertise. We have just recently came into the Forbes Fortune 500. There are 50 delivery centers worldwide and approximately 137,000 people working with Cognizant. So I would like to first acknowledge and thank my company for giving me this opportunity. We'll go to the next slide. I'm getting on to the real content of this now for this presentation. So the way I did that is put in some slides which will be of, which possibly some of you would know. I'm looking at all the profiles of the people who are joining this webinar. I see a lot of them are from IT, but also there are people coming from construction companies. There are some young students, and all. There's a wide variety of audience. So this slide is about Tom Peters. There's a book that he wrote in Search of Excellence. Around that time was when actually project management started, when he wrote in his book and talked about management by projects. Since then, actually, the project management as a discipline and profession has started getting more and more prominent. Before that, it was people used to call about management by objectives and all. So Tom Peters changed that in this very famous book, and he talked about three competencies that are really essential for global performance. One is base discipline, what we call as domain knowledge. Personal and leadership qualities, they continue to be very, very important. But the third most important thing that figured in there in that list was the project management competence. So this is a context for us. So from you will see, it's been 12 years since he wrote this book. Still, as a project management, as a discipline and all, still needs to get more and more into prominence. We'll move on to the next slide. This has got project resolution results, and it is from Standish Group International. Standish Group is like same as Gartner for technology and all that. So Standish Group does a lot of research on the projects, and it's called a chaos report. They produce it once in 2 years. They produce what's known as chaos report. So if you look at this slide, then that's talking about last 10-year data, right, from 2008 till 2000 to 2008. The green bar shows the projects that are successful, and that is ranging from 28 to 34 over the last 10-year time frame. The failed projects are still in the range of 23 to 25%. And the biggest bar there is the challenge projects. They are in the range of 50%. And the challenge project is one, the definition of a challenge project is that the project has reached the end of it, but then the basic business objectives that were put in at the beginning of the project, so there's a deviation from there. Example, it has missed on a timing, its time deadline, or it has gone over budget, or there has been a lot of scope. So whatever was the original objective, it has missed on that deadline, but the project has actually been completed. So majority of the projects across the globe, irrespective of the industry, the challenge projects are in the range of an average of about 50%. That's how the current competency is, I would say, across the world. So this is a context setting for what we are going to discuss in the next half an hour to 45 minutes. We'll go to the next slide. What's the value? So that's the topic for us today. So just to determine what's the value of project management, it's thinking beyond the physical constraints and scope, time, cost, and things like that. This is from a PMI study that they did a year and a half back during the time of recession, when around the time in the U.S. and all that, when they said, okay, in difficult times in the company, the first things to be fired was project managers and all. That was the discussion there in the U.S. At that time, PMI did a research study and asked several global executives on what they believe is the importance of project management. And 80% of them believe that having project management as a core competency helped them remain competitive during the recession. The next slide, similar statistics from consulting giant McKinsey and Company. When they asked the senior executives, what are the top three priorities, then project management figured in the list of their top three priorities of 60% of senior executives. So it's good news that it is catching the attention of a lot of senior executives and all that. We'll move on to the next slide. Going on to the next slide, this is about, now we are getting into some more of those basics. And first, project management. While in the last several years, it is slowly emerging as a, or emerged, I hesitate to call it as emerged. It is emerging as a discipline practiced by trained and certified professionals. Meaning gone are the days when, even now it's there, but then earlier days, people used to make a joke that it's, are you an accidental project manager, meaning, by the way, you have come in and then you are available, so you're made a project manager and all. So that is slowly fading. So project management is emerging as a discipline, and there are a lot more trained and certified professionals coming into this profession. While that is said, many of the companies still limit the application of project management only to a very tactical level, meaning how are we executing our projects, what tools and processes we are adopting and things like that. That's what I will call it as just being tactical. But already globally, a lot of successful organizations recognize project management as a strategic competence. So we'll go on to the next slide and see what does it mean being strategic. So good companies that are using this as a strategic tool, they practice portfolio management primarily first as a means to select or to manage and support a portfolio of their projects that have chance of moving the enterprise ahead of competition. So why I say this is when it's all about investments. So when you have when you want to invest a lot of money, but then you also have several projects in front of you, then it's a strategic decision to make as to where we would want to put our money and which are the ones that are going to get the bang for the buck. Second strategic reason is that it will definitely maximize the stakeholder value. So that's one thing, that's one other strategic reason. And a third one is looks like the recession cycle and all is now, it's not anymore a generation. It's now looks like globally happening once in 3 to 4 years and all that. So the businesses are under severe pressure always to do more with less. More with less has been a buzzword already for several years. And I've gone a little one step ahead and say that do more with less and then more. So when we are challenged with constraint on our resources and all that, it becomes all the more important to make a decision. Where do we want to put our money and which are the projects that are of strategic importance and all that. So that's the meaning of what project management has a strategic role to play. Going to the next slide, project management and competitive advantage. I've put an equation here. It's a product of P and E. That brings competitive advantage. And P is the choice of or the prioritization of projects. I already talked a little bit about this. where are we going to invest our money, whether it is on newer technologies, whether it is on data centers, whether it is on technology advancements, or building new products, building new services. There are a plethora of opportunities for companies available, and several of them looking up like they will make a difference and all. But prioritization of those investments as projects is one parameter. The second parameter is good and consistent execution that brings in credibility. So when we talked about project management as a tactical discipline, we talked about implementation and execution of project management processes, tools, and all that. I say it as P into E. It's a product is the competitive advantage because if you will know two parameters, if one of them has got a lower value, then the overall product itself will be low. Or if one of them is zero, you have got great prioritization of projects which are of strategic value. If they are all executed badly, then you don't get the desired result. But you may be great in execution, but we pick up wrong projects or not the projects that will get us competitive advantage and all that. Still, the overall returns for the company will be low. So the way to gain a competitive advantage in the terms of project management is first strategic, which is about selection and prioritization of projects, and the second part is about execution of the projects itself. So great execution of the projects actually brings in credibility. So I would say in terms of competitive advantage, it is P into E. Going to the next slide, the benefits of project success. Now, sometimes we, in our day-to-day work or in our general functioning on a tactical side, we look at project success as, hey, I finished this on schedule, or this is in budget, or this is slightly over budget, just about 1% over budget, and things like that. But it's not about, if you have to look at in a broader way, in a strategic way and all that, then the way to think about project success is much beyond just those parameters, metrics, and things like that. There are several benefits that project management offers to the organization. First is it establishes an accountability on there's a project manager who is accountable for that. You know, they call it in management as one neck to choke. So it establishes accountability not only for a project manager, but also for several stakeholders. You bring them up on board in advance, tell them what is supposed to be done, what is expected out of them, and when is to be done and all that. So it establishes accountability across all the levels. The managers cost very well, so you are getting a little more predictable in terms of costs. It ensures on-time delivery, provides a catalyst for communication. So there is always communication is the topmost thing that's important for a project success. So it provides a catalyst for communication because it talks about how we can actually manage all the stakeholders and things like that. So you'll see from that list on that slide, prevent scope creep and manages risk and all. So these are some things which can be quantifiable for doing a project successfully. And they are much beyond just a time and a schedule and things like that. So those are the benefits of executing a project successfully. Moving on to the next slide, this slide is about the maturity of project management and how actually it's not a really measure for, it's not like a CMMI level 1, level 2 and all that, not very progressive and all that. That's why I've written here types of maturity on what the organizations can be classified as. Type 1 maturity is our stakeholders just get a feel that yes, the projects are implemented or executed very well, and then we started to feel that we will get some benefits out of that. So it's more of a feel factor due to which the clients or the stakeholders will start getting satisfied. So that's the type 1. And that will come in once we start executing the projects well. Type 2, when you will press a moderator, can you please press all of those buttons so that we see all of those three on the same slide?
Yes.
Type 2 is alignment, and the value associated here is with consistency and repeatability of the implementation. So it's not about one-off good execution that it is done with X but in the organization, but when you go to Y, that Y is not able to do that in the same way. It's not about that. So that means these organizations are a little more mature, that the implementation becomes more consistent and more repeatable. And this happens with well-defined processes, well-defined metrics, things like that. So those are the type 2 organizations. Type 3 is process outcomes. So when we have already established good processes, and then when there is going to be a repeatability and all, in quality parlance, there's a saying that anything that works is obsolete. Meaning, in other words, if it is working already fine, then already there is a room for improvement. So we should look at a better way of doing that one instead of screwing it up and all. So that's all about process outcomes. So when we have achieved a consistency and repeatability of the implementation, then we should look at process efficiencies and process improvements and all that as a result of this implementation. So that's the type 3 organizations where there are a lot of process outcomes and the benefits that can be quantifiable by implementing the projects. We move on to the next slide, and just moderator, please press click so that all of that type 4 and 5 are visible on the screen. So type 4 is business outcomes, and here is where actually the biggest values are found to be seen. So they will start getting business outcomes, meaning our product is released on schedule or ahead of schedule. So it has hit the market, so it has started generating revenues already. Or it has hit the market and we have started grabbing market share out of that one. So those are all the kind of business outcomes. If it is a technology advancements, then we are ahead of competition in bringing of those kind of technology advances and all. So those are all the outcomes of implementing them very, very well, repeatably and with process improvements. Then the stakeholders will start recognizing that there are some business outcomes that are coming out of this good implementation of projects. And the last one is the return on investment. So we have invested all that money, we started getting returns, but how long will it take actually to get that? And this is a very important one if we will go back and relating to the prioritization of projects. There will be always projects that will give us desired results in the short term, but also there will be always investments on projects that are going to get us returns in the longer term. But what is the longer term and how fast is it going to be and all that? That kind of a thing is measured in this type 5 organization. So these are the 5 different types of maturity levels that organizations would generally reach and can be quantified and all that. So if you want to just understand where are we, our group or team or our organization and all that, then we should start asking these questions. So what's it the benefit that we got and whether we are able to quantify those benefits. That's about project leadership and maturity levels. We'll move on to the next slide, and this is just click on all of those. So this is just a header slide to talk about what's the value, and we will discuss a little bit about the value derived by 3 different groups of people. We'll move on to the next slide. You will see the value to external stakeholders. Please press all of those, then we see all of them at one place. What's the value to the external stakeholders? And firstly, who are the external stakeholders? The majority of them. The bigger chunk of external stakeholders for a project are our clients, are our sponsors who have put their money on that. The sponsors who have sponsored the project, they put the money on the table, or on our vendors with whom actually we are getting our work done. It's vendor partners with whom we are actually partnering to get our work done and all that. So these are another important external stakeholders. So the value to those external stakeholders can be measured by what they are getting finally out of our project delivery. That's a factor for defining a success criteria. Not just about my finishing project on whenever it is and all. It's what is the final outcome to our clients or to our vendors. A second one is always an issue about project reporting and transparency. So one of the things that is always, I'll just talk about the next bullet also and then combine both of these things. Just as for us as human beings that we don't like surprises, like I was caught with a surprise with this technology one just before I got into a webinar, which I hated. The similar way in life, we don't want surprises. We want things to be more predictable and all that. And same way, if we are investing in a project and all that, then we also don't expect any surprises. So a very good reporting and transparency will actually feel the people who have invested on the projects will give them a much good comfort feeling. The fourth one on this is documentation, and this is a very big thing actually that we will ignore during the projects, especially in our cultures, that we think that someone else has to document all that what I have done and all that. So by not documenting in testing, in software testing and all, they use a word called throwaway test cases. So I come in, I test with some 10 test cases, I log in $5, I go back home, come back tomorrow, and then try with new test cases and all. So those are typically the throwaway test cases. That's not a right scientific way of doing things and all that. So we have to document all of those things so that they can be used for future purpose. And quite often in projects and all, it is not just about documenting the lessons learned, that too after the project is over, and also we have lost our memory on what are all the several lessons learned. Documentation is always very, very spontaneous and immediate, so that we capture all the tacit knowledge in the minds of people and then put it there so that stakeholders can look at that. So with doing all of these things will improve confidence, and then will improve confidence in on our delivery. That brings in credibility. Who would you go if you have to invest money with someone, and if he fails you repeatedly? Will you go and invest money? They will not. It's the same for our clients and all that. So doing all of these things actually will improve confidence and credibility, and that will bring us repeat business. So that's about the value to external stakeholders if we will do good project management. Going on to the next slide, this talks about, there are 3 bullets in there that talks about what's the value to the project team. So we all are a part of project team, for example. What's it? Or you manage a project that has got hundreds and all that. At the end, after working and slogging out for several hours and burning midnight oil, spending weekends sometimes and all that, what's the value to that individual team member as well as to that whole team? That's very, very important to recognize and make our team members recognize also. The experiential learning that we will get during project execution, especially when you will document all of those things and then start working on them, that'll be a lot more phenomenal. Quite often we don't do all of this, record all of those things, and also if you will see what have you learned 6 months back, then it's already gone off the memory. So the experiential learning for the project teams will be very, very high if you will keep recording all of those things happening on the project. By doing a good project management, the same individual will be able to provide better estimates for next project. It's not often when we will blame it on scope creep for the projects being challenged or for being going out of schedule or for cost or budget. It's not all the time about scope creep and all that. Quite often it's because of poor estimates being given by the project team members, or poor estimates that are being drawn by project managers, or lack of validation mechanisms to validate the estimates in order to get into an overall project plan and all that. So experience learning is also contributes to individual team members providing better estimates for the next project. And more importantly, there will be a lot more predictability on when a piece of work assigned to me, or when a project that is assigned to me that I am responsible for a project manager, what's that predictability about the delivery and all that. It makes life that much more easy. So that's the value to the project teams if the project management is done, if execution is done in a very good way. Going on to the next slide, this is the value to the internal stakeholders, and that's internal stakeholders. Project team is also internal stakeholder, of course, but excluding the project team here because we talked already about the project stakeholders. So internal stakeholders, of course, profitability. Why should we be in a business when both for a client as well as us as a partner, or us as a client or someone else as a partner? It's all about business. So there should be a profitability angle. So when we will do very well, when we execute the projects very well and they are prioritized and executed very well, then the value to us is that increased profitability. More important at a tactical level is the repository of project data for future use, and this is extremely important. And not many organizations keep good repository. First, you have to capture all of them in a right way, and then make a repository of that, and then have to have an access of all of those in a very easy way for people to go back and access them. So repository of project data for future use is actually, if done properly, it's a gold mine of information that companies use in order to make things successful. The last one, process improvements based on all the lessons learned and all of it. So that there's an old adage that fix the process, not the problem. So sometimes during the execution of projects, so we are in a firefighting mode. You don't have time to go back up and down, and also you go and make a decision, fix something. But that is just about temporary. You have to go back all the time in a scientific way of doing things. We have to go back and look at the process and see why has this gone wrong and what is it that we need to do in order to avoid this situation in future. And that can happen only through a process improvement. So those are some of the values. There's a big list in all of this against all of these internal stakeholders, external or project teams and all. But I've just picked up from the ones that we can relate to from our day-to-day work. Going on to our next slide, your role as a project manager to deliver value. And this is extremely important. Globally, when we look at that Standish Group report earlier, when we saw that there is still a very small percentage of success projects, and there is still a very small percentage of C-level executives that still recognize the value of project management and all. Who will go and do that? Who will educate all of that category of people about the value that they will derive out of it? So we as project managers have got also partly some responsibility to educate our other colleagues about it. If we have to do that, it's not only just about our project team. First, we have to start with our project team. So if you will start a discussion at the beginning of a project, just as an example, hey, here is a project, 20 of you great guys, and we have done all this bottom-up planning and all of that, and thanks for all your estimates and all that. So May 31st is our delivery date, and go. So if you will just say, then people are just looking at all their activities and all that, and 31st May only. And once that is over, then what's next for me? That's the kind of a discussion. So the discussion, then you have to look at it from the value of a project management should not be about what activities and what the delivery date and all that. The discussion should start in a completely different way. If I could take the same example, then you would say, hey, this is our client, and he has entrusted this project to us. This project is of strategic importance to this client because of this reasons. While we have, thanks for all your estimates, it's all pretty good. So we have committed to our client that we will deliver this on 31st May. And if we deliver this, he is going to launch this in the market. And he will possibly be the first one to launch it in the market. So we should not be going wrong. If we will do this right, then our client will benefit. It will generate more revenues for that client, and possibly he will, with that increased credibility, possibly he will come back to us and give us some more business so that we can get possibly more wallet share and all. So if you show people that longer one, what's that finally happening of the result of what work they have done and all that, and explain that in terms of a business reason to do all that, that's a completely different discussion that we are having with people. Instead of going and asking, hey, how did you finish your activity? Please go to that sheet and then log in there and where you have completed 30% or 40%. Of course, we have to do that, but there should be much more recognition about the overall value of delivering that one. And in general, people are all human beings, so when you come to work, each one have their own way of looking at things. Each one have their own priorities of doing things. Each one have got their own knowledge, space at doing things and all that. So we have, as a project manager, it's our role actually to align all of them onto the same way and towards the same goal. Next one, we have to equip our project team that they should be able to deliver on whatever they have committed, be it tools, be it training, and be it processes and all that. We have to equip them. Now, equipping, I use that word equip with an intent. Providing tools and providing training and all is different than equipping them. So equipping them is running a little more than just about training and all that. Make sure that they have understood all of those things, they are using it in a right way, and it is giving the right results and all that. There's an expression in English that a fool with a tool is still a fool. That's what is English adage says. So if you will just provide tools, sometimes people may not be using it because they may not be capable of using that one. So you should equip the project team in order to deliver value. And documentation, we talked enough about that a little while back. And aim for repeatability rather than heroics and all that. And especially when it comes to culturally for us, we always are very good at doing things at the 11th hour and all that. So we bring in the whole bunch of resources available at our end, and then they are brought in at the last minute and then want to try and complete things at a time. That's a part of our culture. But that's not the way to do. We will take the terms like we will take guys under words like jugaad and all of those things, and I would say that cannot be, jugaad cannot be an excuse for doing a scientific way of doing a project management and all. So whatever is being done, it should be repeatable. Only then it is a solid one. Otherwise, it is just a one-off one. So our role as a project manager, if you have to deliver value, then we should aim for repeatability among our project team members and our whole of project, rather than just relying on heroics for doing those things. We'll go on to the next slide. Your role as PM, it's a continuation of some of those factors. Data integrity and transparency in progress reporting is extremely, extremely important. It's about integrity, we call in professional language. Integrity in other outside terms is bribes and all that kind of a nonsense. Integrity in the professional world is say what you do and do what you say. So data should speak exactly for what the status of the project is standing and all. That's about data integrity. And then transparency in progress reporting. And communication to all of our stakeholders. We'll come to that in a minute. And change management of culture wherever it is required and all that. When there's always a resistance to change in some cases, and there are people coming with all kind of traits and all of it. So there's a lot of change management required and all that. So you as a project manager can deliver value if you will actually do a very good change management of a culture and align everyone towards the same goal. So that's the role of a project manager in order to deliver value. Now, where is the value? I've gone to the next slide, and this is from a research done by PMI spending more than $1 million. The types of value realized by organizations include, there were revenues, there were greater market share, there's a competitive advantage, customer retention. So you can read all of those things. And possibly for any of those projects that we are doing in our own organization, irrespective of the industry that we come from, if you will ask our sponsor, whoever has put the money for the project, ask them what is it that they will get if this project is successfully. I think we can broadly classify all of those businesses up to 7 or 8 of these listed here. So when we will also talk to our project team, this is what we should do. We should say the end result of this project is leading to all of this value for our organizations, and also that's the intent for this. Now, those were the direct value that organizations derive. We'll move on to the next slide. There's an indirect value also that is being derived by the companies as per the research done by PMI. There have been improvements in decision making because the decision making becomes more data-based, more fact-based and data-based rather than just hypothetical. There's an enhancement of communication and collaboration because the good project management practices will call for good stakeholder management and all that. There's an improvement in effective work culture. There's alignment of practices, terminology and values, and a whole bunch of those that are there that are coming up as an indirect value to all of the companies. We'll move on to the next slide. And coming towards the last one, I'll just finish. Project management, it's a science and an art, I would say. And it's a science because it's a management discipline because it relies on proven and repeatable processes, techniques, tools, and all of those to achieve project success. But it's also a lot of it is an art because it involves people and their management of their people and building relationships and all that. That's a very big chunk of project success. That's the reason why a project management is also an art. So if you're a project manager, then it's not enough if you know all the great process, there's a great repository we have there from which you can get great estimates. All that is all fine. That's just one part of the story. The other part of the story is also about managing a project team towards success, and that's an art. Going to the next slide, this is what we see actually in many times when be it with being project teams or when we will go and deal with different stakeholders and all that. And it's the same actually when we will integrate strategy with execution. When I said P into E is the competitive advantage in life or at work, or be it managing projects or executing projects or whatever. It's all an extremely important part about integrating people, functions, disciplines, all kind of stuff. So integration is extremely, extremely important. This is a picture from where I drive my car, and one day morning I found this very, very interesting. There was just a tree that fell there. And the guys who are painting didn't even, they could have, it's a very, very small log. Huh? Someone should have pushed it with their leg actually. But they didn't do. They just didn't care about that. They are just going about doing their own work of painting on the corner of that road. So this is a bad example of how we can work on silos, and at the end, if you are a project manager, then it's your responsibility actually to integrate all of those things and all. And that's why I say that integrating people, irrespective of which function they are working and all, and that is an art. You go to the next slide, and this is just on a lighter side on what kind of stakeholders that we will get in for those who have appeared for a PMP examination and all this. Is always the popular question that comes is, where does the project manager spend most of his or her time? And Rita Mulcahy's guide says that it is communication and all. And at work I always see, no matter how much communication you do, you still fall short of so much more. So there's no end to that. And if it is stakeholders, they come with really, really unrealistic expectations and all that. So as a project manager, then it's extremely, extremely important. If we have to add value to the project, then we have to manage all those stakeholders very, very upfront and proactively. I'm now just entering into the last two slides. I'm assuming that some of the audience would not know would not have gone through the PMI, PMBOK and all that. And all this time I was talking about processes, methodologies and all that. I just want to spend a minute on this, the project management structure as a discipline when we will say, or as it is a science. I like it personally myself. If you look at this chart, 42 are the numbers at the bottom if you will add on the just for the benefit of those who have not seen this earlier. On the columns are the 5 process groups. They call initiating a project, planning, execution, control, and closure. On the rows are all the knowledge areas where the PMBOK will give you some guidance. What I want to bring to focus is, if you look at 42 processes there, 20 of them are in the area of planning. And if you will touch our hearts and think that how much of time we spend in planning, or how much of time are we allowed to being spent on planning, if you will touch our heart and see, then we will get an answer. But it's extremely, extremely important. There's always a saying that you plan the work and work the plan and all that. So it's very, very important that we spend, while several of those things will be still up in the air at the beginning of the project. That's why we call it a progressive elaboration. But as much as possible, the planning should be solid, and there should be enough time spent on planning. Only then we can be even successful on the tactical side of project management. Going to the next slide, and this is possibly the last slide. Competencies needed by the project team, and I just want to take a minute here to talk about that it is not about tools I already said that a fool with a tool is still a fool. So it's not about a domain knowledge. Or not about doing it as a discipline, or not about a PMBOK guide or something like that, but it is also to do a lot with our general management skills and our interpersonal skills for us as a project manager. Worldwide, if you will see, still there are not many qualified project managers, even for whatever certification they would take from whichever professional organization and all. The characteristics of a project are not going to change, but how we use our processes or not, and what changes is how the events are dealt with the project is in progress. And how the events are dealt with, we cannot ignore the interpersonal skills that are required for a project manager and all. It's very, very important actually to imbibe all of those qualities for us to be a successful project manager. So it's not just enough of knowing all the domain knowledge. One has to become a project manager, then one has to necessarily. So if you say, no, I don't like conflict, but I still want to be a good project manager and all, then it's a very difficult one, because the life of a project manager, when he wakes up in the morning and puts a brush in his mouth, starts with negotiation and conflict handling. So we have to live with that. We have to learn how to handle all of those things and all that. So that's the order of life. Let's move on to the next one. I think that was the last slide, so I will just stop here. I've taken almost about 45 minutes to 50 minutes. We will leave the next 10 to 15 minutes for any questions. Hello?
Hello. Yeah, the first question is from Shanamugam R. The question is, do you believe in agile project management? If so, how do you consider documentation from the agile perspective?
All right, that's a great question. So of course I believe in agile project management. That's a great point. I just step back a little bit and say that because of all this challenging economic times and all that, also in some of the corners in the business, they are wanting to get more and more predictability and shorter durations of projects. So reducing the scope and see that there is a little visible delivery every 3 months, 6 months, and 9 months, and things like that. That's when actually we can get in. There's a lot of benefit of adopting agile project management. So I really believe that there is definitely a value in adopting agile methodologies. But one thing I just wanted to alert, maybe I missed, when we talked about this documentation, for example, planning, spending a lot of time in planning, doing a lot of risk management and communication management and all that. These are all the ones that are all prescribed. But if you have got a very shorter duration one, then whether you'll apply all of these things and all is sometimes also a judgment of a project manager, no? Because it's quite often, while these are all available, these are all several things that are available at your disposal. But what is that you will pick up which suits your project and all that? That's sometimes your call as a project manager. So if we don't need possibly a very lot of documentation and all that in an agile project and all, possibly we will need lightweight documentation. So that call has to be taken by a project manager and all. These are not just one size fits all kind of a solution and all that. So that would be my answer. Thank you.
Next question is from Srinivasan Ramachandran. The question is, project managers, especially in IT, are not trusted by his or her subordinates. This has even led to a thought of totally removing this layer.
Can you please say it loudly, please?
The question is, the project managers, especially in IT, are not trusted by his or her subordinates. This has even led to a thought of totally removing this layer. Your thought on the same?
No, I missed the second part. They are not trusted by their project teams. What's the second part?
Second part is, this has even led to a thought of totally removing this layer. Your thoughts on the same?
All right. So the question is whether the project teams are not trusting their project manager, and this is causing that the organizations think that the project management position is redundant and all that. So I don't think that is true. That may be just a two-pronged problem, I would say, if that is happening anyway. First, if the project team's not recognizing the value of a project manager is sometimes to deal with, then the project manager has to first think himself, herself on what is it that that person is doing actually to deliver value. Unless it is, you make that visible to project team members and they see the benefit out of it. I have shown in my previous slides how we as a project manager can deliver value. If we don't show that, then of course there will be a credibility issue. But the bigger one for me, I think, is that the management is thinking that the project manager is not delivering any value and all that, and that's the second part of the question. I think that's also a bigger problem actually. So there is need to be, either you should show results and then let the results talk to your management about the value of project manager, or first in order to do that, first we have to get our project team on board, that they recognize that implementing good project management practices will be good to them as well as to the team as well as to the organization also. To do that, I think is a responsibility of project manager.
Okay.
Thank you.
The next question is from Venugopalan Balakrishnan. The question is, how does a project manager determine the right amount of documentation? Most often the cookie cutter approach to documentation leads to overdoing
Keshav, can you slowly but repeat it a little loudly, please? I'm not able to hear. Sorry for that.
Okay. The question is, how does a project manager determine the right amount of documentation?
Oh, how does one determine the right amount of documentation?
Absolutely. This is the question.
Well, yeah. No. How does he do that as the right amount of documentation? I'll see. Look, first, let's go back to the basics of what is it, what's the purpose of the documentation and all. So number one is first documenting things that are currently working or the way it is being done. And second part of purpose of documentation is to access that for any future use and all that. So these are the basic two purposes. So if the size of our project will determine that, okay, there's not much of a reusability that is coming out of this, or it is not that others are not able to use it, or this is just a one-off kind of a thing and all that, I think then the documentation can be very, very lightweight or something like that. But for any project of reasonable investment and of good time, and I would say, I don't want to put a number there, but if it is, example, there are 25 number of people working on a project, and they are all things that we are doing are all linked or to be integrated and all of it, and there's a good chance that what is being done there will be reusable sometime in the future and all that, then there should be a very good documentation for that. Now, the process and documentation, sometimes these are looked up as overheads, and that's sometimes it's a fair thinking, but then that also happens because where it is not required, we sometimes go for an overkill and do a lot of documentation. And where it is required, then we go back and think that it is not required and all. So both of these things actually lead to some misconceptions of that. Example, same thing as a process. People will think that when you talk about process, then templates or best practices and all of it, then quite often what comes to my mind, to our mind is, oh, this is another overhead, there's a lot of bureaucracy, why should I fill in all these things and all that. But definitely there is a value to that. How much of that has to be adopted and all is again left to the decision of a project manager based on the size of the project and investment. But not doing those things well, then we should not criticize the methodology for that one. It is actually the application of all those things, the practices, process and all that are criticized, not the methodology itself. In process, one of my earlier bosses used to say about process, after religion, most crime is done in the name of process. He used to say that one. So under the name of process, so sometimes some people will not doing things and all that. And that's the reason why project that's the reason why managing that people is an art, and that's the responsibility of a project manager. So I cannot say exactly how much of a documentation and also the leads I gave you is just to determine. I think it's the project manager's prerogative to determine how much is required and all based on the repeatability or reuse, things like that. Thank you.
Next question is from Jitendra Nehra. His question is, what level of ownership and authority the project manager should have in an IT organization, as mostly the cost and schedule is already agreed with the customer before the project manager is assigned.
What's the first part? First part, I missed the keyword there.
What level of ownership and authority the project manager should have in an IT organization?
What level of authority and ownership?
Yeah.
Ownership is it?
Yes, ownership.
All right. Oh, of course. So good organizations that have got very sound project management practices and all that generally give very good authority and empower the project manager to make decisions, make them also accountable for those deliverables and all that. That's the practice in good organizations and all that. So if it is already showing green and all of it before if it is started, and what's your accountability and all, if it comes to that, is that the question? What second part of the question was what, Keshav?
Second part is, because mostly the cost and schedule is already agreed with the customers before the project manager assigned. So he's asking what is the level of ownership and authority.
All right. Okay, that's a great question, and that's a situation actually several times also. That's a great question. So you find you already agreed everything and all, it's all signed off, then you'll find a Durga Rama may please come over, join us, and then become a project manager here and all. Yeah, that kind of situation is, we face that in our day-to-day work and all that. But I would say that's not what is desired as per our good practice. First, you should find a project manager, identify a project manager, involve the project manager right from the beginning and do. While that's a fair expectation, I understand that in practice sometimes we don't do that, or we don't follow that, and then you are come in after everything is agreed upon and all that. And this is a flip side of the project manager profession. So we are charged with that responsibility to make things happen for a commitment made by someone else. And of course there's a challenge, but I think that's when the sponsorship and the empowerment comes into picture. While we may not have the liberty to change some things and all because it has already been signed off, but what are the things that are required in order to achieve those things and all that? So I think we should get that empowerment and that authority to get access to those resources and get those decisions made in order to achieve that one. But that's the way life is of a project manager. So my suggestion is, if you will come into the situation, then the thing is, then we should negotiate, we should do a good study and then get a quick grab of what are the things that we need help in order to achieve those dates, and then negotiate those things with our project sponsor. That would be my answer. Thank you.
This question is from Rajesh. He's asking, what are the best practices to handle the challenge projects with the business sponsors, stakeholders to increase the success factor?
What best practices to handle what?
The challenged projects with the business stakeholders to increase the success factor.
What are the best practices to have handled challenge projects and all that? But a good first is among another interesting statistic is that the projects that are being very successful, the ones that are in that 25 to 30% range and all that, they are generally being, in terms of investments and all that, quite often sometimes they are very high. But the ones that are being very, very successful is the ones where they were able to get a lot of repeatability from their previous experiences, previous projects, previous repositories and all that. Keep in mind, no two projects are same. Every project is unique and no two of them are same and all that. The challenge projects, best practices, I think there's nothing like a best practice in a challenge project and all. Actually, the challenge is to move that challenge project percentage into a successful project. I think that's where the challenge is. Otherwise, if there were best practices for challenge project, then actually there would not be challenge project at all. There possibly need to be much more best practices. They have to learn from what they have done and why it has been, why they have missed out on the original business objectives and all that. Learn from that and then turn them around from challenge to a successful project. But if you are asking me whether I know of any best practices on challenge projects and all, so I don't have a ready-made answer for that. Sorry. Thank you.
The next question is, as a project manager, how to handle the challenges of handling a project in a weak matrix organization?
Or in a weak matrix. In a weak matrix organization, then our role is more of a project coordinator and all of that one. I think you can turn it around in a little bit differently from what I can share from my experience and all that. In a weak matrix organization where the report, they're all functional organizations, they're all aligned by functional organizations. And the work of a project manager primarily is kind of a documentation, metrics generation, data analysis, and things like that. You know what? It's always, what cannot be measured cannot be improved and all that. And we will see actually in our real life, we sit on a huge pile of data, but nobody cares to go into corners of the data and then do an analysis and see what are the things that are going on well, what are the things that are going wrong, which are the corners that something is going on right and why, which are the corners that something is going on wrong and why. So people don't spend time to analyze all that data to come up with such analysis to make some corrections and all that. I think even if it is in a weak organization and all that, where the empowerment is less, the organizations are a little bit of a silos and all that, where people still don't recognize value, I think we should still churn that data and then do some analysis and show, hey, here is what is something that is going on extremely well and all that, and why not we propagate this in the other places where it is not going on well. I think it is about bringing the visibility to, or making it first is making it tangible and bringing visibility to all those good things that are happening in a project and all that, and basically about bringing visibility to all of those analyses. I think that way, over a period of time, even a weak matrix will start to see the value of doing a good project management and all that, and then we'll slowly going into a strong matrix. That's my take. Thank you. Hey, Keshav.
Yeah. The question is, while identifying a project manager. Hello, can you hear me?
Sorry, go, start slowly.
Okay. The question is, while identifying a project manager for a project, should domain knowledge or prior technical experience a must-have?
Domain knowledge or, sorry?
Or prior technical experience.
No, I'm missing that word.
The question is, domain knowledge or technical experience should be a must-have for being a project manager?
All right. So with the domain experience, the domain knowledge or technical experience is essential for a project manager. So the answer is yes and no. I think there we will find, for example, it depends on the type of project that we are executing and all that. But I think having a reasonable understanding of the domain, or having some of those experience, if it is a technology project and all, will serve the project manager well. If the project may not call for it, but having that knowledge, I think, will definitely serve. And here is the reason why I say that. For example, of your project team members, as a project manager, your job is not just to churn the data and then ask on progress reporting and communicate with stakeholders and all that. If your team members will give a wrong estimate and all that, then your neck is on the block. So if you will have reasonable domain knowledge and technical knowledge and all that, then you will be able to do a little bit of a consistency check or a validation on several things that go on. Or also the people who are working in the project team, they also will relate to you, hey, he is not just about doing just some looking at some tools or MS project or spreadsheet and all of that one. He or she also understands some of those things and all. So it will help actually to build up on those relationships and talk about those things and all will help. I think there will be, in some industries where a domain is very domain intense projects and all that, I think domain knowledge is extremely important. But if it is in case of IT industry and all that, where people move from one project to another and all that, not necessarily in a domain and all that. So at that level, it is less of domain and a little bit of technology. So my in general take is that some kind of a domain knowledge in the area of the project that you are working, or some kind of a technical expertise will be definitely add value to you as a project manager. The difficult part is that there's no guarantee that we will continue to work in that same domain all the time and all. If your profession calls for working in that same domain as a project manager, I think it will add a lot of value if you will gain that domain knowledge. That's my take. Thank you.
When the scope changes during the implementation.
Sorry. Hey, Keshav.
The question is, as a project manager, how to react for the frequent scope changes?
Hey, I'm able to hear you. Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Hello. Hey, Keshav.
Yes, can you hear me now? Hello.
Hello.
Yes, are you able to hear me now?
Hey, you should speak up a little louder. Yeah, I'm not able to hear you at all.
This question is from Vasantan, and the question is, as a project manager, how to react for the frequent scope changes during the implementation stage?
How to react to request to changes and
frequent scope changes during the implementation stage.
Sorry, I really apologize for this one, so I'm not able to hear because of possibly bad connectivity. Request to what?
How to react to the frequent scope changes during
Hello? Hello? Hello?
Can you hear me now?
Hey, Keshav?
Yes.
Hello?
Are you able to hear me now?
A little better now.
Okay. This question is from Vasantan, and the question is, as a project manager, how to react for the frequent scope changes during the implementation stage?
How as a project manager? Hello? Hello?
Hello, yes. Can you hear me now?
Hey, Keshav? Hello?
Hello. Can you hear me now? This question is
Little better.
okay.
Yeah.
The question is how to react to the frequent scope changes during the implementation stage. If there are too many scope changes.
No, your voice is breaking. Yeah.
Now it's breaking. Or is it better now? Hello?
Hello.
Yeah, hello.
Hello. Hello.
Yes, hello. Hello, can you hear me now?
Hello.
What I have done, I have sent you the questions to your email ID. Can you please check them and answer?
Hey, Keshav.
I think my wife
Hello.
is listening to you. So, hello.
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 Yeah, Keshav.
Yes. Because there are so much problem. My voice is not reaching to you. So I have sent you a couple of questions on your email ID. Did you find?
Okay. So you'll send it over mail.
Oh, yeah, yes.
So should I wait or drop off or?
So now because we have taken most of the questions, a couple of questions currently are answered, so we can take them offline. I really apologize to the audience also for the technical glitches today we have. The questions which were unanswered can be taken offline.
Hello.
The answers can be posted on TechGig. Thank you for taking this webinar today. And also I would like to thank all our participants for making this webinar a huge success. It was really an informative webinar. And the presenter really discussed about the values of project management. So once again, analytics all about understanding content. We have invited Mr. Mohammed Yasir, CEO and co-founder of Cognizant.
Hello.
The number you are calling has put your call on hold. Please stay online or call later. మీరు ప్రయత్నిస్తున్న నంబర్ మీ కాల్ ను హోల్డ్ లో పెట్టారు. దయచేసి లైన్ లో వేచి ఉండండి లేదా కాసేపు ఆగి ప్రయత్నించండి. आप जिस नंबर पर कॉल कर रहे हैं उसने आपकी कॉल को होल्ड पर रखा है. कृपया लाइन पर बने रहें अथवा कुछ देर बाद कॉल करें.
Hey, I think there's still some problem with that audio. I'm not able to hear Keshav or moderator's questions. So, but thanks very much for joining this. I would like to drop off from this and say that it's over. So thanks very much for all your interest. I apologize for all that goof-ups that happened on the technology that I had to join from my mobile here. So part of the problem may be also with me. So, but I thank you very much for your interest. Put my mail ID there. So if you have any questions and all, please send them over to me directly. Thank you very much.